Alright, let's work on our first UI element, which is going to be the widget that is going to be responsible for displaying the damage number. So let's make a class. New class, we're going to look for a user widget. And I'm going to call this TP user widget. And I'm gonna put it in a UIs folder. Alright, now that we have our class, let's add a public section and a protected section. So what we need for our widget, since our widget needs to display the damage number, I'm gonna add a uText block. I'm gonna call it damage text and set it to null pointer. And I need to forward declare this, so let's forward declare uText block. Alright, now I'm gonna give it a uProperty. I'm gonna make it meta equals bind widget. Did I mess this up? Yeah, bind widget optional, and make it blueprint. Let's say read write is fine. Alright. So what this is we don't necessarily have to create this uText block in our widget. It's optional. So you can actually use that widget without having to create this damage text uText block in your widget. Let's add one more. Actually, I'm gonna add a... No, you know what? No, that should be fine. Yeah, that's all we need. And let's create a function. I'm gonna make a U function. Make it blueprint callable. It's gonna be a void, and I'm gonna call it set damage text. And it's gonna take in a float for a damage amount and a bool. I'm gonna call it B is critical, so that we know if it's a critical hit that we are displaying or not. Yeah, I think that should be, yeah, that should work. Alright, let's generate this. Now, in here, I just want to check if the damage text is valid. So if we have it in the blueprint in the widget there, and I also kind of want to know if I'm taking damage or if I am inflicting damage. That way this can work in multiplayer. Yeah. So I'm actually going to add two variables here. So if B is damage taken, let's call it equals false. U property, make it blueprint read only, and actually I also need a B critical hit. So now you can also check if B is damage taken. Cool. Now if we are taking damage, what I want to do is do damage text and then set color and opacity, and I'm gonna use a slate color, F linear color, and set it to red. So when we take damage, the text will be displayed in red. Okay, cool. And now if it's a crit, be what did I name it? Critical hit. equals B is critical. We need to set that so we can access this in the blueprint to play different types of animation depending on if we get a normal hit or a critical hit. So this variable will be available for us to use in the blueprint. What else? Oh, and we need to set the text. So let me do damage text. Then we can call set text on it and do f text as number. I'm gonna do f math because I want to make sure that it's a whole number. I don't want any decimal or anything like that. So I'm gonna do it round to integer and use the damage amount. Here we go. I think that should be it here. Yeah. Yep. Let's compile this. Alright. Now let's make a new folder. I'm gonna call it UI. And I'm gonna add another folder inside. I'm gonna call it widgets. Just widget. Let's create a blueprint version of our widget. So TP user widget, I think. Yeah. And I'm gonna name it WBP for widget blueprint and call it damage. I think damage text is fine. Let's open it. Now in damage text, I want an overlay, so we can put everything on top of it. So I'm gonna add this here. That's my overlay. Let's rename this to overlay underscore root. Now on my overlay, I want a size box. Let's do a size box. This will allow us to dictate the size of the widget. So I'm gonna change this to, let's see, size box root and make it variable. I'm gonna select desired here and let's override the width and height. Let's do 200 and 100 maybe. And now let's add a text block. So text block, which should be this one. Alright. Now for us to be able to edit this with our function from the C++, we need to make sure that it has the same name as the one we chose in the C++. So let's go here. So I named it damage text. So this should be named damage text and make it variable. So now we can edit this from our C++. Ooh, let's put some numbers in it to see what it looks like. That looks decent. Let's make the text maybe a little bit bigger. What if I do, let's say 50? Oh, actually, I'm gonna do 45. I'm gonna add some outline to it. Let's do 3. Make sure that it's in the middle. That looks nice. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, so that's our damage. And next I'm gonna add some animations. So let's click on animation here. Or if you don't see this, I think you should click on this first and then it should show up. Animation, let's name this damage animation. Alright, now damage animation, I'm gonna add a widget and select this. Select my widget, gonna click the plus and change the color and opacity. Now I'm gonna drag this to the 1 second mark here and change the opacity to 0. So now if I press play, you see that we have a fading animation. But actually I don't want it to fade immediately, so what I want to do is to go to 0.5 here and set that back to 1. So now it only starts to fade after 0.5 seconds. It's good. Next I'm going to add a where is it? Transform. Add a transform to it, to translation. Let's see, drag that back here. So I'm gonna add a translation here. So I'm gonna scroll back to the 1 second mark and set this to -100. Now if we press play, it moves up a little bit. Nice. That looks nice. Cool. Next I'm going to actually duplicate this and call this one damage animation. Let's do critical. I want to change the colors, so I'm gonna do 0.35 here and 0 here. That gives us like a reddish orange color for our crit damage. Next is the let's do the scale. I want to change the scale of it, so I'm gonna scroll to, let's say 0.5 here and change the scale to twice the size, and then back on and then on 0.5 I'm gonna set it back to 1. Then again at 0.75 I'm gonna set it back to 2 and set it back to 1 here. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah. Now when you get hit by crit, you can really tell, but it's a crit damage. Wait, that should be set to 1 here. There we go. That's a bit better. Maybe it's too big actually. Let me do 1.5 instead. Alright, I think that looks pretty good for our crit damage. So next is to make sure that we display this widget when we inflict damage and set the damage text to the correct damage amount. I think we'll do that in the next tutorial. Yeah, I think I'll stop here for now. And the next tutorial should be available on Patreon if you're interested in that, link in the description. And otherwise, it'll be available on YouTube in a week. Anyway, see you in the next one.